Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Normal podcast, where we highlight minority business owners and founders, and we use this platform to shed light on their entrepreneur journey. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Beyond Normal podcast. I'm excited to be here with everybody on this on this glorious Friday here. We got a very special guest. We're changing things up a bit, but before we dive into that, just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors over at Velour. Again, Velour has been an excellent partner for us as we've been building out this Beyond Normal platform. As you guys know, or some of you may not know, Velour is an important player when it comes to imports, making sure that, you know, if you got a product, you got something that you want the world to be able to take part in. Velour is your partner that you want to partner with. So if you're going to import it, make sure you Velour it. But again, that Brooke and her team have been excellent partners for us the entire time. And just want to give them a quick shout out because they're really helping us build something special here with this platform here. So now let's get right into things. We got a very special guest here. Changing things up a little bit today. I wanted to give a little bit of love to a fellow podcaster, and they're also in the tech space. His name is Cam Perry. He's created the brand podcast called Between Two Divs. He's a freelancer in the tech space, but he's doing some amazing things when it comes to front-end development and building out his own platform. So I definitely wanted to make sure I brought him on as a guest today for him to, again, share some of his story and then give us a glimpse into what he's building with Between Two Devs. But without further ado, I want to bring Cam to the stage. How's it going, Cam?
Man, I'm doing good, man. I know, it took a minute for me to get my technical stuff together, but, I love, being on stuff like this, and hopefully I can share some of my stuff with your audience, man.
Now, hopefully you definitely will. We appreciate you coming on the platform. I want to hop right into things. Let folks know a little bit about your background, how you got to this point where now you're creative, you're in the podcast space.
So my name is, Cam Perry. I'm a web developer, podcaster. And honestly, like I always tell people all the time when I talk to new people about like my journey, because always people ask like, how'd you get started? Like, what would you do if you're, someone that's just starting out? And I always tell people like, just start, because I know a lot of times like we get stuck in this mentality of we gotta, have everything done perfect right away. We gotta know exactly what we want to do. And sometimes, like, while you're learning stuff, you'll figure out what path you want to take. Because, like, I know when I first started, I saw a lot of people, they're making a lot of money. And I didn't know how I could get to that point because, I looked at web development as something that only people that had to be really smart to get into. And this was maybe about 7-8 years ago. So this whole space is way different now than it was back then. And I saw this guy named Coding Phase. And I was like, man, like this guy, like he knows this stuff. And this is about 5 years ago. I was like, man, so he knows this stuff. He don't seem like he's that different from me. Let me figure out how I can get to this point where I can make, $60,000, $70,000. Because where I live at, you make $70,000, especially as a single guy, you live like a king. If you live in, LA or New York or something like that, like, obviously you got to make way more than that. But where I'm at, I was like, that's fine because, a lot of my family, they never touched that type of money. So I was like, if I can just put in the work and just stay focused, I can get to that point. And, along the way, I, went to a coding boot camp called Lambda School. I'm sure some of y'all, if I don't know how many people are listening that are Lambda School people, I went to that boot camp and I learned so much that I probably would have never learned if I would have just stayed the self-taught route. All the time, people always tell me, Cam, you didn't need to go to boot camp. You could just learn this on your own. And that's like a large debate that people always make. Is a boot camp worth it? Is it not? But for me, it was because I learned so much as far as like being on a team and doing projects, with other people. Because unless you just have like a really good group of people that are focused on the same thing, it's hard to kind of collaborate team stuff because Usually you have one or two people that want to do the same thing, and everybody else kind of just does their own thing after a while. And I don't like chasing people down. So with Lambda School, it was like kind of organized, and it was a way where people could kind of make sure they were accountable. Everybody was kind of, for the most part, focused on the same thing. And, I learned like project management skills. I learned, how to communicate with other people, because before Lambda School, I was not a great communicator at all, man. Like, I know at my job, I'm cool with people, but I never was like trying to go out of my way to talk to people. And if you looked at me now and you saw what I'd be doing now, you'd be like, there's no way that's possible. So so you can always grow along the way. Like, even if you're not good at talking to people, not good being on the camera, if you want to do it, just do it. So that's the biggest thing I could tell people if they want to kind of get into code, or try to do something that they maybe are scared to do, but they want to do it. Just do it.
I love that story. You telling your story from the beginning to the end. That's really amazing there. And you touched on a couple of things there, right? Because when we think about this tech space, we know that the numbers, the representation, and a lot of the roles where the money is made is pretty low for people that look like me and you, right? I think in the most recent year, for some of the top companies, like Google, like Facebook, you're probably talking less than 10% of that workforce within that tech space is actually people that look like me and you, right? I'm probably on the fringe of that 10% mark when you include African Americans and Latinos. So this is a space where we got to figure out how to gain that knowledge, and then get to the point where we feel comfortable applying for those roles, and we feel like we have that parity, that even playing field. And you leveraging Lambda School, which is like you said, it's an accelerator program, right? Where you learn how to code, you learn some of those core things. Like you got to figure out your way of doing it, right? Everybody has their own way. Some people, like you brought up, they may want to have a side project and do things on their own, but that's very difficult for the average person. So talk about a little bit around you going to a coding boot camp. And like, how did you weigh the cost? Because I know there is a pretty significant cost on the front end.
Yeah. So this is always something like, one of my friends, Coding Phase, we became real good friends, and I know I mentioned him already. But like, we always have these chats all the time about this, because like, he's always like, man, like $30K, or I think it was, at the time, was $20K. That's a lot of money. Like, I would never do that. But me personally, I always think about, like, with Lambda is like, you only pay if you make $50,000 or more. So I'm like, man, even if for some reason or another it doesn't work out for me, like, because I'm always thinking, just like, you always have to think about what maybe could happen. Even if it doesn't happen, you always got to think about that. So I was like, even if it doesn't work out, I'm not out of money if if for some reason I don't get a tech job. But the reward is, if I get a tech job, I guess I got to pay them, but they helped me get to that point, so I'm not really mad about it. It'd be different if it was I was just paying $20K, $30K right off the bat. I'd be like, nah, I'm good, because I don't think a lot of people, at least people like me, are willing to do that or have the funds to do that. Because like a lot of us, we had to work to get everything we got. We weren't in a position where we just had thousands of dollars in our bank account that we could just say, hey, let me go ahead and put a deposit and pay the monthly payments, or maybe I put down 15,000 and maybe I pay the rest, or maybe I have $20,000 in the bank account. Who knows? But I don't have that type of money, and I know most people that are listening probably don't got that type of money either. So this is something that I just kind of just weighed my options and was like, man, like at the time I think I was working retail, so I was like, man, anything's better than working retail. Like, I don't know if any of y'all are listening have ever worked retail jobs, fast food jobs, any type of those dating jobs. No offense to people who work those jobs, because everybody got to work. Everybody got to make ends meet. But I ain't trying to do that when I'm 40, 50 years old. Like, that's not where I want to be. Because I see so many people all the time when you work those jobs, where your coworkers or whatever. And I always ask them, like, man, like what are you trying to do after this? Because like, if you're making $8, $9, $10 an hour, like, you can't survive off that. So, you just got to just have a plan. And with me, like, I was just focused on making sure that my goals became a reality. So that's why I was like, the money, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to just go hard, make sure it's worth it, because I'm already going to be potentially paying a lot of money anyways. So why would I not like try to be serious about this? Because if I'm not, even if I do get a job, then I'm like, man, I wasted my the opportunity, the experience that I probably will never get back. So that's kind of why I did it, and why I always tell people, if you really have to do it, like I said, just do it.
Thanks for sharing that there. We got a couple folks chiming in. Wally's Code chiming in for you. I know you got some folks checking in for you.
Yeah.
Larry Cam is saying you got this, of course. Our partners over at Velour are chiming in. Brooke is saying, "Is it me or do you guys look alike?" And so, yes, Cam is my brother from another mother, of course. So I'll take that as a compliment to say that I look the part of a founder, right? Because a founder and a creator is what I look at. I look at Cam as being right now. So people still chiming in. Feel free to leave a comment. As Cam is sharing his amazing story, make sure that we all are chiming in here. But Cam, I appreciate you sharing that, because there's always that debate around, what you're going to spend your money on, right? And in this current, environment that we're in, like it really is true that it takes money to make money, right?
Yeah.
And so putting that equity in, right, putting your time in as well. Time is really currency right now, right, in terms of the things that we all spend our time on. And so you elaborating on that, on your story there, it definitely lines up with that mantra. I thought of that as you were telling your story there. So, right, you talk about going to the coding bootcamp school. Obviously, it takes a little bit of resources, a little bit of capital, but they're flexible on that from that perspective there. But I'm curious now to, how does that get you into podcasting? How does it get you into the mindset of you want to create some content relative to your audience?
Yeah. So that's kind of an interesting story. So I know, honestly, I always tell people, like, if I didn't do Lambda School, I never would have had this podcast that I have today. Like, I know for a fact I wouldn't, because like I feel like, and I always say this too, everything kind of comes full circle. Like, I feel that's why I always tell people, like, if you do a job or do something that you like, and maybe you had to step back, or maybe you had to stop doing it for a little bit, like, still kind of keep working behind the scenes, because eventually whatever you learned is going to come back and you'll be able to use that for something else. And this is where the podcast came into. And I didn't really talk about this earlier, but actually I went to school for journalism as a broadcast, journalist, because I wanted to be, like, at the time, like, back in the day, I wanted to be on radio, wanted to be on TV, wanted to be on ESPN. But I realized going in, and like, that you had to work at the local level before you get to ESPN, like, unless you get lucky and you know somebody that works there or something. So, and I was like, man, they're only getting paid $20,000. Man, that's people that work at, like, a bank or something, right? That makes more money than that. I'm like, man, why'd I go to college for this degree when, in starting at this point, when I could have just, did another major or something and maybe try to work my way through the radio or something, been an intern that way, So it was kind of a mistake I made, and I always tell people, like, even if you make a mistake along the way, because I mean, we're always taught, okay, we got to go to college, you got to get a degree, and then we'll get a job, right? And sometimes, like, it doesn't always go that direction, because I know a lot of people that go to college and they're not doing anything related to their degree. And I was like, man, and for years I was kind of stuck, and this is kind of why I kind of pivoted to the web development thing, and then I went to Lambda School. And then Lambda School was where I got better with my communication skills. Because if you look at my old videos on YouTube, I used to stutter real bad. I used to, like, not be able to put my points across real well. And because you on camera every single day, you're talking to all your peers every single day as well. So you're kind of being comfortable, be uncomfortable. And it was good co-pass. So with that point, you wanted to make sure that you didn't look like a fool. So that's why, like, when I went to Lambda School, after I started learning all the skills, did the front end, the back end, I became a TL, a team lead. And the team lead was where I had my own group of students. And the team lead, if people don't know what it is at Lambda School, it's essentially a TA where, you're helping students, you're helping the instructor, like, if maybe a student has a question or an issue with something, you help them, so the instructor don't have to answer every single question. And, it was something where I was able to teach people what I learned. And if you teach people what you learned, it's going to help you as far as your development skills, help you with the communication skills, and also, reinforce the knowledge you already know. So this was something that I was like, okay, I did this. let me figure out what I want to do to help more people. So this is when Between Two Divs became a thing. But I was like, man, I see so many people when I go to different meetups and stuff that are, not like me. So I'm like, man, let me do something where I can like show and tell stories from people that are already in the industry that are people of color. More specifically, I try to, reach out to as many as Black people as I can and have them on my podcast, share their stories, share some nuggets, share what they, can, hopefully help people that are probably trying to be in that particular industry, whether it's web development, data analysts, or whether they're trying to be a founder, whatever it is, because there's so many different paths to get in the tech game. You just got to figure out what you want to do. And so, like, I'm really appreciative of all the people that have been on, because I'm sure there's probably a few people that checked out my podcast that have, like, either one, they've gotten into tech, or B, it kind of helped them, maybe in a time in their life where maybe they weren't really sure if the path they were taking was the right path for them. So that's kind of how that podcast started. And I'm appreciative of all the people that have been on, because, like I said, man, like, it's been a journey. It's fun talking to new people, and it's always cool, like, hearing different stories and kind of what they got going on.
Folks still chiming in with the comments. Appreciate everybody lending their dialogue to the discussion. Coding Pass here, so just checking in with you, Cam, saying what's good. Wanted to get to what Brooke said, though. There's no mistakes, just life lessons. And
Exactly.
So what you're really speaking to, Cam, is spot on with what Brooke is saying here in terms of, just leveraging the most of a situation. If it doesn't work out the way that you want it to, what is that, what's that learning? What's that takeaway, right, that you can take and make improvements for the next decision that you're going to make, right? And so you just really spoke to something in terms of, essentially having conversations with folks around tech, and then people coming into the industry kind of in their own light. I think that really goes missed sometimes, right? Because people think, all right, for you to be in tech, right, you got to go into it being a hardcore coder. And I want you to talk a little bit around what you were getting to before, around just the opportunities to come into space. I can kind of kick things off just to give you an idea of where I'm trying to take this conversation. But I'm in tech. I'm on the sales side. I'm on the client, customer success side of the business, right? I'm quote unquote in tech, right? But I'm not touching any code, right? I'm managing those relationships, and there's just other parts of the business when it comes to this tech industry that people really kind of overlook sometimes.
Yeah, I think, honestly, and I always say this all the time, like, in tech, you can create your own opportunities. Like, this is probably one of the few industries where, like, you can create your own job. And this is kind of what I'm sort of doing with my brand, is, like, I'm trying to create opportunities, and I'm always thinking, like, where I want to be 3 to 5 years from now, because I think that's the important thing. Like, you don't always have to think that far ahead, because you can maybe think a year ahead, right? But you want to start building your building blocks now, and also, like, if there's, like, something that you want to do, there's probably a job for you, and if there isn't, create the job for yourself. Because, like, if there's something that's a need, or something that people want, or you see something that maybe isn't in the market that probably needs to be in the market, you can make sure that is created. Or if it's already created, try to reach out to people and say, hey, man, I got this service, I got this opportunity, I got this thing that I'm doing that will make your life easier. And anything that makes people's lives easier, people will pay money for. And this goes back to my point, where, I've done jobs in the past, and I think, you mentioned this as well, is where every job I've ever done, I think Brooke even said this as well, is, is an opportunity, it's a learning experience that you can apply to something else. Because I worked direct sales, and I don't know if any of y'all work direct sales, but I used to sell Kirby vacuums for like 3 years. And that was the hardest job I've ever done in my life. But I learned so much. Like, I think there's a quote where you learn more in sales and if you work at if you're at a university, because you start, like, understanding how people operate. Kind of like how to talk to certain people, talk to people in different situations, because everybody's different. And with that, you have to, make sure that if you don't sell anything that day or whatever, you don't eat. And me personally, I'm already a small guy to begin with, so I can't afford not to eat, so, you know what I'm saying? So I kind of apply that direct sales stuff to kind of what I'm doing now, which is I'm just going out, reaching out to people. I know, with the freelance stuff, like I said, it's like direct sales. Like, if you don't reach out to people, if you don't reach out to clients, you don't eat, because that's like my main source of income. And so like until I get to a point where I'm able to have the between two divs, the media brand itself become the primary income, I got to put in that work, and that's what everybody got to do. Like, don't, even if you get to the point where you starting to make money, you start to make really good money, you can't let the foot off the gas, because there's always someone right behind you. I don't believe there's ever going to be a point, at least in the near future, that you're going to have to worry about like quote unquote competitors, because I feel like the tech space is so vast and there's so many different opportunities that everybody can eat. But you don't want to ever be at a point where you see someone that's maybe right behind you and they surpass you and do something that you wanted to do, and you didn't do it because you were complacent where you were at. So you never want to become, most of us that are listening, we probably want to get to a point where we can, help our families, create that generational wealth. And if you're not thinking that, start thinking that, because I think that's like where everybody should be, is where you can make millions of dollars and able to provide for your mama, your daddy, your grandma, your great grandma, if you have great grandmas or great grandpas or wherever it is. But you want to make sure that everybody's good. So then, your families don't have to worry about, man, when I pass away, like I don't have any money where I can leave behind for my kids or grandkids. Because, like I see so many times that people, have these funerals and they can't cover the cost because, stuff happened, or they didn't have a will, or didn't have life insurance. And that's something that we all got to make sure we do. Like, especially as Black people, we got to make sure that stuff is taken care of, because that's the most important thing.
There, Cam, we got Brooke chiming in. I thought the same thing. I haven't heard about Kirby vacuums in forever, Cam.
Yeah.
And I feel like you having that experience, that's like the ultimate sales experience, right? It's like either that or like being like a car salesman, right? Yeah. Like those are the two where it's like, if you can do those, you can pretty much do anything, right? Because of what it takes to actually like be in that all day, every day. And then a couple more folks chiming in here. Cam, you coming in with that energy. You're giving us that real, like you said, it's such a broad discussion to have, but you just touched on things like, building wealth, legacy, being able to take care of the people who took care of us, and then making sure that we leave something for those who are coming after us as well. Great lesson there. And then like Wes said, these aren't lessons that are just tech related, right? These are lessons that we can all apply in our general lives. And then as we start to wear that hat more of being entrepreneurs, right? And then kind of like taking our own destiny into our hands, like that's something that we always want to kind of keep top of mind. So, but you just spoke to something there as you're building this brand between two divs, right? And you're having these conversations and you're starting to build the platform via the podcast, similar to what we're doing. Like you're also doing the freelance work as well. And so talk about like how has like, what's something that you've learned throughout that process that you maybe wish that you would have known at the beginning of the process, like, something that one lesson, that one skill that you may have learned, right? But now you're like, holy crap, if I knew this like 5 years ago, I'd be this much further ahead. Like what's that one thing that you've learned so far?
Yeah. So I think freelancing is something where I think a lot of people that do it, they kind of get into it and they think it's like once you start getting a client or two, then you don't, there's not really a whole lot of work you got to do. Like freelancing is like a full-time job, maybe even an overtime job sometimes, because like you'll have months where you'll do really good. Then there'll be months where you'll kind of like be a little slow. And that's why like you'll have to have multiple streams of income. I always tell people this all the time. Like you gotta, like what I do is anytime I make money on anything, I put 10% into crypto or my stock investments, or it's just any type of investments I have, because, I'm sure, you already know inflation is real. Inflation is going to get real bad, in the near future. So I'm trying to make sure that I beat inflation by putting my money into different investments. And, sometimes I put a little bit more than 10%, but for the most part, it's like, at least 10%, because I think, like I mentioned before about the generational wealth is maybe right now, you're not really putting in a whole lot of money, right? But, maybe a year from now, that money may, be 50% more than it was right now, 100% more than it is right now. Who knows? If you beat the S&P, it's 10% more, but that's still better than, your bank rates that you're getting, where it's like less than 1%. So you don't want to, have a whole bunch of money in there, if you do, and if you do, no financial advice. I'm saying not financial advisor, but I'm saying I would not put a whole lot of my money in my bank account just because like I want to make sure that I beat my inflation numbers, and also, just have enough where, you're good for a year. If you got at least that much in your bank account, make sure, like you start making that money work for you because, you don't want to be in a position where you're looking at it and be like, man, like I wish I would have invested in Tesla or look at GameStop, for instance. That's a good example. GameStop was at $4 a share last year, and then it went to like 300 some, 400 some dollars, and that's 100 times, return, off of only a $4 a share investment. If you have like say 100 shares, maybe even 1,000 shares, you can, be all right. Like you probably could not work for a whole year, if you didn't want to work for a whole year, just because like you're putting those investments and stuff. Because people always say, man, I see this stock that goes through the roof. I should invest it, because I think a lot of times people think investment is something where you gotta wait till you get older to do. But the earlier you start investing, the better. And I know we talked about like the freelance stuff, but I think this kind of goes hand in hand with that. Is you want to, make sure that everything is good. Make sure you don't have to stress about like if maybe you don't get a client this month, but at least you're still making money in other avenues, so you're not really stressed about it. Because I think stress causes you to make mistakes, and you don't want to make mistakes. When you're trying to do something that helps your future, because, I know with me, like I said, I got my investments, I got my freelance stuff I do, I got, different avenues I'm trying to do with the brand. We'll talk about my reality show I'm working on later on, but there's like so many different things. And I think also, and I want to speak on this point as well, is think of yourself as a brand. Like whatever you're doing, think of yourself as a brand, because you want to do whatever, it is that you're doing. You want to make sure that you market yourself that way. If you want to be the Shopify freelance guy, market yourself as a Shopify expert. If you are a React freelance person, market yourself as a React expert, and do stuff that is kind of related to that, whether it's being on YouTube, whether it's having a podcast where you're talking about it, whether that's, being on Twitter or LinkedIn and having articles that are based on kind of stuff that you've been working on. Give tips on like what you've been doing. Like you want to put yourself in a position, you want to put yourself out there so people will look for you. So then you'll get opportunities that way as well. Because, sometimes, you don't want to always have to be looking for opportunities. Sometimes you want to make sure that you get in a position where opportunities come for you, because there's a lot of times where I'll be working on something and someone hit me up and be like, hey man, I saw you were working on this. Can you help me with this? And then, we kind of go from there. Sometimes, I charge, hourly. Sometimes I charge a set rate. It just depends on how big the project is. But I think the biggest thing I wish I would have learned back then, I know it kind of goes to the point what you mentioned before, is I wish I would have started asking people what their budget is. I think that's the big thing. Instead of throwing a number out there, I think that's a big mistake people make, is they throw out a number because they think that number is what they can afford. But if you don't ask them what their budget is, then you don't know what they can afford. Then you're just thinking like just based on what they look like, maybe what their background is, maybe they're a friend, you want to give them a discount. But and there's another thing about the friends and the family. I don't work with friends and family, for the most part, if they're going to be trying to ask me to do it for free. I know a lot of y'all, you want to do stuff for your friends and family. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it for free. Like, I know you want to, but, I've had a couple. Yeah, what's the budget? Exactly. Like, what is the budget? If they don't tell you the budget, then don't do it. Because I've had a couple people where I asked them the budget and they went ghost on me. They weren't serious. Because, like, I'm not going to be trying to, give you a low number or trying to, say, hey, man, I'll do this for $50 an hour, or, hey, I'm trying to do, I'll do this website for you for $2,000. And then they say, oh, I can't do it. It's too high for me. Okay, cool. But or sometimes they don't say nothing at all. But if you ask what the budget is, you know how serious they are, and they say, okay, maybe my budget is like $1,500. Then okay, bet. Now I know exactly what number is like the low ball number that they would be able to do. Because they could tell you the budget is $1,500, but maybe you add some extra features or add some extra stuff you can do for them, and maybe it gets to $2,000. But you kind of like know where the lowest number you can hit it at, and that's kind of where you want to be at the end of the day. So that's kind of the biggest lesson I would tell people is, like I said, just ask what their budget is, and then kind of work from there to kind of see if that makes sense for you. Like maybe it's too low and maybe you can't do it, or maybe you know a friend that can do it for him. And you say to your friend, hey, I got this guy that, he needs the website done. If you give me 10% of what you make off this, I'll refer them to you. And you make money without even having to build anything. So that's kind of stuff that I would tell people if you're a freelance person. And I think if you do those two things, you'll make some money.
Dropping gems there, Cam. Like, what's the budget? I got to leave that up there for a little bit because that's very important in our community. There tends to be like a timidness, right? When we're asking people that look like us, who are right down the street, like in our community, in our vicinity, hey, would you buy my product for X? And sometimes we kind of sell ourselves short by saying, all right, yeah, X is probably too high. Let me go ahead and give them a 20% discount, right? And that's kind of the opposite of business, right? In business, you get you get what you can get. You get it what you feel like your product is worth. And it takes a while for folks to wrap their head around that. I know that you're selling merch right now, so I wanted to dive into the merch conversation because this has been an interesting one for me. As folks who are listening in, we have merch on our site. You guys can check it out. We'll make sure that we rotate that link in there throughout the rest of the conversation. But for the topic of merch, that was one of the things where as I actually started to kind of dig into how much product costs, it's kind of hard for me. I don't have the scale, right, for me to be charging $15, $20 for a shirt, right? When it may cost me $10 to ship it, right? And then that's on top of the product cost. And so we sometimes kind of sell ourselves a little bit short. So I want you to dive into your merch a little bit, right? Tell folks what you have there. And I'm curious to know around the pricing conversations that you may have had with customers. Does that topic, like you said, come up of, all right, how much are you willing to spend?
Yeah. So this is an interesting question. So like I think merch is probably the one thing I probably honestly even I got to work on a lot because I think that's the one area where like I'm not really as focused on it. But I do have merchandise that I sell, and actually I can give you good advice on the price, like how I figure this out. And this is kind of like goes back to my point about sales. Is like you want to know your numbers. Like I don't know if y'all watch Shark Tank, but they say the same thing. You got to know your numbers. You got to know what's the least you can charge where you still make money. Because like if you like I know I got a friend of mine, and I don't know if he's listening or not, but I tell him all the time because he started selling shirts himself and he was charging like, I don't know, it was $15 to $20 a shirt, right? And then like it costs like maybe $10 to make the shirt. Then you got to worry about shipping. That's another $3 or $4. So, you're probably with all the fees and stuff, you're probably making $3 a shirt. And I'm like, man, I'm like, it's not worth it. Cause then unless you're, selling a bunch of shirts, and I don't know about you, but I'm not selling 100 shirts a month. So, and that's only $300. Like for all the work I'm doing to promote my product and all that stuff, I ain't, trying to just make $300. $300 is cool because like I said, you can use the $300 to put in investments because that's what I would use the money for mainly anyways, is to kind of reinvest into other stuff. But I'm not trying to do that. So I'm thinking, okay, I need to make sure my margins are at least 50% or higher. Whatever I'm selling, I got to be making a 50% profit. If I'm not making a 50% profit, then I'm not selling it. Whether that's shirts, whether that's hoodies, whether that's hats. And then if I'm making sure that, on the average it's about 50%, then that's what I put it in as the price. So if the price, so say it costs, $7, $10 to make the shirt, and then, the shipping on average is about $7. That's $14. Then with the fees, it's probably another $3. So you're probably selling your shirts anywhere from the $30 to $35 range, like minimum. That's just how much your shirt's going to cost you if it costs that much to make everything. And then, if it's a high quality shirt, you can always obviously raise the price even more than that. But that's kind of where I would go. And anyone's listening, like, hopefully y'all take that advice because I think, we get so caught up in we got to make our shirts quote unquote affordable. But if it's a quality product, people will buy it, like, if you have a quality brand, people trust you, people like you. Some people buy your stuff because they want to support. And there's no other way to support. Like maybe you don't have a Patreon. Maybe you don't have anywhere where people can donate money if they want to donate money every month, wherever it is. But, they want to support. They buy a shirt, that's $30, $35. but that's $35 you didn't have yesterday. And it all helps towards cutting your costs down, whatever you're trying to do. Maybe using this money to try to fund like your production costs, whether it's your podcast, or maybe you got a show, or maybe you got a business expenses that you got to do every month, and maybe it helps towards that. But it all kind of helps towards something. And if you don't have none of those costs, like I said, just put that in investments, let the money work for you. And maybe you only made $300 this month selling merchandise, but maybe that $300 next year turns into $1,000 off the $300. That's good money off that. So definitely do that. Don't price your stuff based on what you think people will pay. Price it based on what will make you money. At the end of the day, that's what you always want to do.
Thanks for sharing that there, Cam, and that's always a sticky topic in our community. For folks to really make sure that they're asking for, like you said, what's gonna make dollar cents, what's gonna actually drive their business to grow, right? That's the name of the game, growing your business, right? And you can't grow your business when you're discounting it. And it just takes some time to get there. On the merch front, these are always interesting conversations that I have with people because I think whoever the CEO of the Louis Vuitton house, I know there's several brands that Louis Vuitton have, but that company there, they make so much money, man, and their products are priced at a premium like no other. And so I specifically see in the merch industry, I'm always interested in how people price their product and how they tell their story, because we were talking about skill set earlier, like being able to articulate your value, and that is a very important skill. And like you said, somebody may be buying your product because they want to support you. They may buy it because they like the quality. There's different reasons for people to buy stuff. And so there's really no reason to discount your products at the end of the day. So I definitely appreciate you putting that message out there on our platform because we need more of that.
Yeah, for sure, man, most definitely.
And so I wanted to transition because I know we're on the tail end of the conversation to the next question I have for you. You alluded to it a little bit earlier, just around kind of what you want to do moving forward with the brand. We at this point in our conversation, we always we have a sponsored question. So shout out to Velour. Again, they are our partners in bringing this production to you. But we have this question around what is that world domination? What is in a year and 5 years, if you had what you wanted in terms of for between two divs, right, where you wanted it to be, how would that look? And what does that world domination look like for you, Cam, and then for the bigger brand?
So this is actually something I was talking about on Twitter earlier. I think it was this week. And I was, right now, like I got my podcast I'm doing, but I'm also working on a show, and I think I alluded on this as well. And it's called the Hack Spot, which is a coding competition, a coding reality show where I want to help junior developers get their first job. Because I'm always thinking about, man, like what can I do to help people like us get jobs in the industry? That's always one thing. Even with the podcast, that was kind of my goal, is to get more people like us in there. But this would be like the next step, the next level towards that, which is having a show where people, will build something, and we'll have judges, kind of like Shark Tank, where they'll be able to present their app or website they built to a panel of industry judges, and people will be able to decide on who is the winner. And then, with stuff like that, you get the exposure, you get the feedback, you get, people able to tell you exactly where you're at. Because I think a lot of times when you apply these jobs, you don't know where you're at. Like, you may be someone that's applying to 300 jobs, right? And I always recommend people not to do all that, because like I said, man, if you, make, genuine connection to people and you get to know people, you can probably skip, having to apply to all those jobs. That's a whole different topic altogether. So, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make the life of people that maybe are boot camp people, or people that may have been self-taught, but maybe have been learning for a while, or people that just got out of college, people like that. that maybe are ready for prime time and they just haven't really had a whole bunch of people look at their resume or look at their LinkedIn and, maybe reach out to do an interview with them. Have it where I'm like having those people like that are watching. Hopefully there are a bunch of their employers that are looking at it and be like, hey, let me hire this guy. Let me pick this guy. And, and hopefully down the road, I can get to a point where I can actually have apprenticeship programs where if you win the competition, you get a job at the end of the day. Because then that's like, okay, like this guy is serious. I'm serious anyway. People, hey, this guy's serious. He's offering jobs for people that win. Because I don't like guaranteeing that I will for sure to get you a job, but I can guarantee if you do a competition like my competition, which is the Hack Spot, you're going to get people that are going to be calling you. I guarantee it because I want to make sure you look good. I want to make sure I got a little package for you, like kind of like, what they do with American Idol or The Voice, where you get to know their story, you get to know where they're from, how they got there, what is the reason why they wanted to be in tech? What's the reason why, they want to do this opportunity? Like, stuff like that, where you get to know the people, get to know their story, and you feel that you kind of know them without really knowing them. So then when the whole competition really starts and they start building these different things, you root for them. You're like, okay, maybe they didn't win, but let me reach out to them. Let me see if I can find opportunities for them, find work that I can give them, whether that's freelance work, whether that's a contract, whether that's, maybe I know somebody at a company that maybe needs someone like this guy. So, I just want to make sure that I'm doing stuff to help people because I think that should be the mantra for most people. Help your neighbor, help fellow people that maybe are not in the same position that you are, because if you do that, the people will help, hopefully will help the next person in line, the next person in line, next person in line. So it's all, more people like us that are getting in the industry. So if I can do something that can help people, then, I did my job. And if y'all want to be on the Hack Spot, I'm still taking submissions right now. Go to hackspot.tv, check it out because, like I said, it's going to be serious. We're going to start production next September. So y'all check that out. Or this upcoming September. I don't know why I said next September, but this September.
No worries. It is next September. We know what you meant, Cam. So I was just putting it up there. You said hackspot.tv.
Yep, hackspot.tv.
So check that out, everybody. Interesting concept there. But it's really cool to see Cam actually taking that idea. Like you said, Cam, you starting from the Lambda School to starting a podcast, to having those conversations, to now what you're focusing on, which is really building a platform to get people to that next level. This space is really a great opportunity for folks to get in the right way when it comes to the tech space. And so I feel like what you're really providing is a means for those folks who don't want to take that traditional route, right? Of going to a four-year institution, potentially going to grad school, like going that route in order to get into tech. That is a traditional route. And even within that, there's probably a handful of schools that a lot of the big tech companies are looking into. And so with that being said, there's got to be avenues for us, people that look like us, right? That FUBU model, right? Where we're building platforms that really tailor to our audience. And so this is a really cool idea. Me and Cam, we touched on this probably within the last 7 days. And I was like, oh yeah, we got to have you on the platform, right? We got to make sure that we give your story, give your podcast some spotlight. And these are the types of stories that we definitely want to start bringing more into the Beyond Normal kind of, air, right? We want to make sure that whatever that soapbox is, like we have on our platform, you're able to utilize it yourself. And you're in a really unique spot because you're creative, you're in tech, you're leveraging all these tools to really tell your story your own way. And it's just really cool to see what you're building.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Yeah, like I always say to people, like, like if you have an idea or have something that you want to do, just do it. And I know I said this earlier as well, but just don't even think about it because it's like you're going to learn so much stuff along the way that maybe you're not successful in whatever you're trying to do, but you can apply to something else that helps you, because you learned something that you were unsuccessful with something else. So always, keep making sure that you're, trying to build on whatever you're trying to do, build your brand, keep going. And like I said, with the whole competition is, I just want to help a lot of y'all out because like where I live at, there isn't a whole lot of people that are hiring junior developers. So I was like, hey, let me do something where I can help people, get jobs, and be something where a lot of people will pay good money for what I'm going to be offering, but I'm going to do it for free because I want to help as many of y'all as I can. And if I can help at least 2 or 3 y'all get a job, by the end of the year off something like this, I did my job and I appreciate it. If y'all, donated, a couple little dollars you made off the, just the opportunity I gave you, if you want to do that. You don't have to, but I'd appreciate it. So, but at the end of the day, I don't do it for the money. I just do it for helping people. And hopefully, I can help some of y'all. And, down the road, if, you want to, take me out to dinner or something like that as well, if I helped you, whether that's, on this podcast or, on the show or, whatever opportunity that you see, I appreciate that.
I like it, Cam. And so, in closing, I want to pass it to you. Let folks know how they can keep up with the brand, engage with the podcast, and then just any closing remarks that you want to leave us out on as well. Make sure you throw that in there.
Yeah. So you can find me on Twitter at CamPerry21. I'm on Twitter a lot, so that's like the best place to contact me. Or if it's real personal, you want to email me, go to cam@between2divs.com. If you email me on there, I'll probably respond within a day or so. So if you want, it's something real personal, or maybe you were inspired by a story that I told or inspired by something I told you, you can reach out to me and say, hey man, Cam, I appreciate what you said. Definitely inspired me to do this, So if you want to do that, I appreciate if you do that because I always are excited when people say stuff like that. Yeah. Take out the dinner. Yeah. I'm dead serious about that too. I love to eat. I mean, I look like I love to eat, but I love to eat. So yeah. And also if you want to reach out to me or you want to be on my podcast, like I said, go to between2divs.com. That's where my podcast is on. Also, it's on all the DSPs, all the digital streaming platforms, whether that's Apple Podcasts, whether it's Spotify, whether that's I think Amazon even has a podcast platform now. So all those platforms, you can reach out to me on there. Also, like I said, go to hackspot.tv if you want to join the competition, or if you want to be a judge or something like that, or a mentor to some of these people, reach out to me on there as well. I'm always looking for mentors, because I think it would help the contestants, have people that can really help them with their careers. So reach out to me on there as well. And also my last closing remark is, and I know I mentioned this already, is just no matter what people say, block out all the noise. That's all. I'll say that as my last remark. Block out all the noise, because there's always going to be someone that's going to hate on what you're doing, say that you can't do it, say that you shouldn't do it. But as long as you trust your own process and trust your own convictions, you'll be successful no matter what. So just block out the other noise and let everything work for you.
I love it, Cam. And so, again, just want to thank you for hopping on the platform. Again, like we got below, check it out, between2divs.com. Like Cam said, across all major streaming platforms. I've been digesting it all week. Plenty of episodes to dig into for different people with different tech, backgrounds. Again, FUBU, for us, by us, like people that look like us out in the tech community. There's a lot going on right now, lots of opportunity. So make sure if you're interested, make sure you tap in with his podcast and his brand overall. And just want to shout out, again, our sponsors over at Velour. They've been amazing partners the entire time. This is the kind of content that we're really curating with them hand in hand. Cam is probably the first, I believe Cam is the first person that we've actually had on with that focus on podcasting in general. Like they have a podcast and that's really part of their platform overall. But definitely we'll be looking to have more folks like this, like with Cam's background, right, where they have their specialty in their industry, and then they're also leveraging podcasting and some of the social media tools really as an outlet for them to connect with their customers and just, people in general who want to digest their content. But again, thanks for coming on, Cam. And in closing, just want to say thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Beyond Normal podcast. Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Normal podcast. We can be streamed across all major streaming platforms in addition to YouTube. Come back again.